from the European Utility Week. This morning we are speaking to Gianluigi Migliavacca, who is the SmartNet project coordinator, Horizon 2020 project, and the project manager for RSE. Gianluigi, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about SmartNet, the scope of the project and the objectives?
For sure. So, well, in the European world, but maybe or even wider, we are assisting to a revolution that is caused by two big ingredients that are combined and create a very big, important event. So on one side we have the explosion of renewable energy sources with variability patterns, and so the different way to consider generation, which is not any longer dispatchable resource, but something that has to be considered with its variability during time. On the other side, we assist, especially in distribution, to deployment of small resources, small generation resources, but also loads that become programmable in some way, so are available to put themselves available to provide flexibility. And so we call all those resources distributed energy sources, and those resources could be there in order to help the system, not only to be a sort of problem for the system, but also to help the system in order to overcome the problems, or in any case to tackle the problems that are created by the variability pattern of the RES resources in transmission. But of course, in order to do that, we have to coordinate efforts between the transmission system operator and the distribution system operator, because the distributed energy sources, if they have to provide a contribution for flexibility contributions for distribution, of course they are insisting a network that is managed by the DSO, whereas the manager of the flexibility per excellence is the TSO that normally in Europe manages also the flexibility markets. And so TSO and DSO have to cooperate. How to do so? So in SmartNet, for the first time, I think, because we were in year 16, the first project to tackle this important issue, and it is demonstrated by the fact that we are followed by a huge amount of stakeholders. We had more than 100 visitors, stakeholders that were present at our workshops in Florence 2 weeks ago. And so the project is about TSO-DSO coordination in order to get in the best way, so in the most, so to say, the most efficient way, contributions for flexibility coming from distribution. And so we are tackling that from two points of view. On one side, we are creating a simulation platform that is able to simulate different coordination schemes between TSO and DSO, and to compare them on the basis of a cost-benefit analysis. On the other side, we have three technological pilots, one in Italy, one in Denmark, and one in Spain, available to understand how to practically organize flexibility contribution from distribution resources. And so on both sides, we got a lot of results up to now. On the side of the simulation platform, we got the first simulations results, and of course with also some unexpected results, but in any case very, very interesting to analyze. On the side of the three pilots, we are getting results, and also on that side there are some curious outcomes that of course are what is the spice of a European project, because otherwise if everything is clear from the beginning, why to study?
Exactly.
Of course, and so I'm very happy to be nearly to the end of the project, because we are finishing mid next year, so mid 2019, and we initiated 3 years ago, so 2016. And so during 3 years we have made a very big path, and we have for sure developed this huge platform to simulate that is something that was not done before, because we are simulating in very big detail, nodal detail, both transmission and distribution networks at the target year 2030. and that for 3 countries, Italy, Denmark and Spain. And we are simulating in a nodal way, because we are not only simulating the network flows, but also replicating the markets that retrieve flexibility. And so on one side, the tertiary market, that is the one in which flexibility is traded for balancing and congestion management, eventually reasons. On the other side, the secondary AFR, as the ENTSO-E calls it, so the secondary frequency regulation, that is in any case managed from in an economical way, so economical optimization, and stays for bringing again the flows with the adjoining countries to the fixed amount, so that the 50 Hertz of the frequency is respected. And so both together make in some way the efficiency of the coordination scheme, because the tertiary market is supposed to be a less expensive way to retrieve flexibility, because it is done less in real time. By contrast, the secondary regulation has more stringent technical constraints. So whenever the tertiary mechanism is not efficiently enough, so the secondary will be able, of course, to make it, but will make it with a more expensive economical outcome. And so from the point of view of the efficiency of the technical and economical efficiency of the coordination schemes, we can measure what is the most optimal and the least optimal. And we do it separately for the 3 countries, because the regulatory and from the point of view of the system, they are completely different. And so we are getting to analyze 4 coordination schemes. It was 5, but the 5th was excluded due to some reason that very complicated to. But 4 coordination schemes, and we are comparing them on the basis of the cost-benefit analysis.
So, if I may ask then, and I know we've discussed this very briefly, but what was the most unexpected result that you noticed from the project? You mentioned that there were some unexpected results.
That is a very interesting question, but of course it's important to make the point, because after 3 years of the project and the simulations, some results do exist. Well, on one side, we realized that flexibility provided by resources that are not firm from the point of view of their behavior, the dispatchability behavior, can have provide some problem to the system. So actually forecasting errors are something that should not be systematical. Otherwise you destroy by definition the market itself. So the market should be based on firm commitment to deliver energy. Otherwise the market can be very efficient, but if the dispatched pattern is different from the one that is agreed into the market, you can create even bigger problems than the ones that the market solves. And so the decentralized coordination schemes in which the distribution network is considered in detail, for instance, that should in principle be the most efficient ones, because the centralized scheme in which distribution is not considered is open to problems when you dispatch and you find that you have bottlenecks that are unexpected and so on. Actually, in the results, when you have an important amount of errors due to forecasting mismatch, that can turn out to be less efficient than other markets. So actually, firmness is very important. But in order to get firmness, you have to put those entities that are giving you flexibility in a way that, in a way, by considering as a product something that incorporates their way to provide flexibility, that allows them to be firm in providing flexibility. And in any case, you have to take into account, of course, the most advanced forecasting tools and capabilities. So technology is also important from this point of view. The other aspect that was a little bit unexpected regards more in detail distribution systems and DSOs. So actually we are expecting to get some liquidity problems in case local markets for congestion management are implemented. That due to the fact that, of course, small markets, of course, are subject to the fact that not so many entities are able to provide flexibility for the system. But that is even more exacerbated by the fact that the distribution network nowadays is is working with a tree-like structure, not a meshed structure like the transmission system. That means that the number of resources able to resolve a bottleneck or to rebalance the system when something in distribution does happen are not so many. And due to that, you are prone to problems not only of liquidity, that is in any case a problem because you cannot have sufficient reserve locally to even if the system has the amount of reserve that is needed for that, but locally you could not be able to solve the problem. But even worse, you could have not so many subjects available locally to solve the problem, and so have a problem of local market power. So the problem of the fact that those subjects could offer at whatever they want because they are sure to be accepted, because they are the only one that are able to solve the problem. And that is a problem from the point of view because it's of the markets, because it's a failure for so it's very important because the European Commission, the clean energy for all European provision wants to open to local markets for flexibility in these DSO areas to tackle this problem of flexibility. And this problem of flexibility is also tied with another problem due to the scattered panorama of the DSOs. So the DSOs are not like TSOs that embrace a whole network of a country. Yeah. Many of them are very local. And so what to do when you have a zone that is covered by a fragmentation of DSOs? In some cases, DSOs are even not the same role. So there is a DSO that is the primary one connected to the TSO network, and other ones are underlying DSOs that are just, well, we have just DSOs with 12 customers in some regions. So what to do for flexibility market with them? Of course, they should consortiate together, appoint a market operator, and create a market in a region that is, of course, can guarantee sufficient liquidity and sufficient, of course, guarantees for what regards local market power in order to be a market, so to create the possibility to create a market. So those are some lessons learned that I would like to bring. Of course, they come from a simulation that should be in any case extended. So our project is still 6 months, and we want to make other simulation on a time horizon that is broader in order to have more situations, more analysis, and maybe get more deeper in this. And of course, the last point of our project will be to make a regulatory analysis. So we are comparing the regulatory trends in Europe coming from European but also national documents, as well as position papers of the different stakeholders with our findings of the project. All together will bring us to distill some regulatory guidelines. The more we are able to go in depth in the problem, to analyze with the simulations the results, the better we are able to create guidelines that can be useful at European level. Final issue I would like to raise about the pilot, the Italian pilot. The Italian pilot is very interesting because it implements a coalition scheme in which the virtual capability from distribution, so the constraints in distribution, are in any case estimated even if a centralized scheme is implemented. And that is an interesting scheme that also, because our TSO, Italian TSO, Terna, is the leader of that, is a very serious attempt to make something in the direction of DER flexibility incorporation. But we have to take into account that using resources that were not initially planned in order to provide flexibility can bring to time timings in providing the service that are not compatible with those for secondary regulation, for instance, that are requested technically speaking. And so we are investigating also from that point of view where the problem is, because there is a whole chain that is on one side ICT chain, but on the other side the control chain and the machine, so the hardware. So where the problem lies? Is it some delays due to the ICT? Is something that is related to the control scheme of the machines that were not so performant, because just at the time when those control systems were projected, those needs of secondary usage were not envisaged, or it is a machine problem, so a hardware problem. So that is a very challenging issue that we want to tackle, and in order to understand whether this scheme, also from the point of view of the technological investment to bring to it, can be feasible or not. And in Italy we have to take into account that there are some pilot projects undergoing that are experimenting a flexibility provision from different ancillary services. And so our view is that if our results could bring to something compatible with the timing of the services, from the European project we can directly pass to something that is under control of our regulator, and so something that is really an application. So that is the best that a project coordinator can wish for himself, so to provide something that not only is interesting, but is really implemented just after really the project is finished. Yeah. That's it.
Unfortunately, that is pretty much all the time that we have available. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
I look forward to us being able to explore the SmartNet project a little bit more through our various channels. But again, thank you so very, very much.
It was a pleasure.
From European Utility Week, thank you so much for watching.